Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Anita, and for those of you that are new here, I'm a medical student here in the UK and also run a very successful property business. Today we're going to be focusing on health and looking into one of my favorite topics, which is nutrition. So a few weeks ago I was reading the papers and I came across this very interesting article titled "Blueberries Can Cure Cognitive Decline." After reading this article in the paper, I delved in deeper and I found the actual source in the original scientific article, and it was actually published in a recognized journal called Nutritional Neuroscience, and it's this original article that we will be discussing here today. So, can blueberries actually reverse cognitive decline? So let's dive right in. So to give you guys some background on why this is a very important topic today, aging is inevitable and we're all gonna, whether we like it or not, whether we accept it or not, we're all gonna grow older, and part of growing older is cognitive decline. So there's normal cognitive decline that happens with aging, and in between that is something called mild cognitive impairment, and then beyond that are things like dementia, and within dementia you have Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, etc. So this study specifically focused on mild cognitive decline and exploring how your nutrition could even in fact reverse cognitive decline. In fact, the WHO recently released some stats and they predict that by 2030, so less than 8 years from now, 1 in 6 people will be over the age of 60, which equals to around 1.4 billion people. And by 2050, they predict that this number is only going to double with around 2.1 billion people over the age of 60. As you can see, as the years go on, a larger and larger percentage of our population is getting older. That's why cognitive decline, which is an inevitable part of aging, is super relevant and very important for us to discuss. And shockingly, it was also found that currently, of the people aged 65 and above, 39% of them had experienced some form of serious cognitive issues, and 68% of those who experience these serious issues with cognition are unable to live independently because of the severity of their condition. So it's been known for a while now that nutrition plays a huge role in our life. I'm sure we've all heard for years upon years various different nutritional experts selling or promoting one different product over the other as being the new superfood. In fact, it seems like every single day there's a new superfood coming out that it's hard to keep up. One of my favorite books called Anti-Cancer, in fact, even goes on to talk about various studies that have been done that prove how different foods that are high in antioxidants can even reverse cancer. So if you haven't read it, guys, definitely go check it out. I'll link it down below. And very recently we've seen the Mediterranean diet being talked about a lot and taking center stage as the best diet for your brain. So using food as a way to prevent illness is nothing new. However, what makes the study special is that instead of just preventing, this study also talks about reversing cognitive impairment. So what exactly makes all of these foods special? Well, scientists have found compounds called polyphenols that are present in the Mediterranean diet, in the foods, in the legumes, and in the vegetables that are consumed in this Mediterranean diet. Polyphenols are essentially a class of compounds found in plants, and they consist of phenolic acids, flavonoids, lignans, and stilbenes. There are over 8,000 types, but the ones that have recently gained popularity include ones like EGCG, found in green tea, and resveratrol, found in grapes and wine. So how do these polyphenols actually work in the body? Most polyphenols work as antioxidants in the body, meaning they can combat damage from the UV rays that we're exposed to daily and also pollutants. And in addition to all this, they also have loads of other benefits. Many experts have recently found that they have anti-cancer benefit, can protect against cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and also neurodegenerative diseases. So now that I've got you guys excited about polyphenols, where can we actually find them? So the highest concentrations are in fruits and vegetables, cocoa, coffee, and even wine. And among these, wild blueberries actually contain some of the highest concentrations of polyphenols. One retrospective study looking backwards at the eating habits of adults over 15 years found that those adults who had the highest consumption rates of berries had delayed their cognitive decline, and another study carried out over 12 weeks found that wild blueberry juice consumption in those experiencing cognitive difficulties enhanced cognition and also increased the blood flow to areas of the brain. However, the sample size in these studies have so far been quite small. Carrying on from these studies, the authors of the paper that we are about to look at carried out their own study to see if wild blueberries could actually improve the cognition in people experiencing mild cognitive decline. Specifically, the aspect of cognition that they looked at was speed of processing. And speed of processing is literally a function that underlies all of cognition. It is the ability of our neurons to communicate with one another effectively and fast. Simply, it's the time it would take for you to complete a mental task, like even solving a math problem or crossword puzzle. So unlike the other studies, the authors of this study chose a large sample size of 133 people, and unlike the other studies, they chose a much longer duration of 6 months. They used an imaging method called event-related potential to look at the brain function, and a separate standardized test called the CAT-NAB that looked at cognitive function. They were also very strict in how they selected their participants. They had participants aged between 65 to 80, and none of them had dementia. Also, gender-wise, it was reasonably balanced with 44% males and 56% females. However, 97% of the sample size were all Caucasians. What is so great about this study is that it had a very robust study design, making it extra reliable. First off, the participants were randomized. Second, it was a double-blind study, so meaning neither the participants nor the examiners knew which group the participants were allocated to, so what treatment they were getting, whether it was the wild blue powders or the placebo. And also, it was a placebo-controlled trial. Out of the 133 participants, 86 of them were found to be experiencing mild cognitive decline based on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment Tool. And these 86 were randomly allocated to either the treatment group to consume the wild blue powder or the placebo group where they consumed a lookalike powder without the actual benefits of the blueberry powder. And in case you guys were wondering, the fake placebo powder was actually made to look and taste identical to the actual wild blueberry powder. And out of the 133, those that were not experiencing any cognitive decline were used as a reference group. So they had no cognitive impairment and were instead used as a reference point for those who were experiencing cognitive impairment to see how cognitive function changed. And there were 9 checkpoints over the period of 6 months where their cognition was measured and also their brain was studied. And behavioral tests were also done. So now that we've talked about the study design and why it's actually a reliable study design, what were the actual results from the study? Well, the blueberry treatment group, who initially started with cognitive decline, throughout the 6 months while being treated with the blueberry powder, started to show improvements in their cognition and improvements in their speed of processing. In fact, it improved to such an extent that at the end of the 6 months, their speed of processing was no different to that reference group, so the group that had no cognitive decline to begin with. This shows that the blueberry powder was effective in improving cognition to the normally functioning levels for that age group. And the study also found that the speed of processing was most significantly improved in the 75 to 80 years age group. The improvements were also both behavioral, so based on the CAT-NAB scores, and also neural based on the ERP scores. Thus, these results show us that this supplement was effective in reversing one of the hallmarks of aging, which is cognitive slowing, where it takes you longer to complete a mental task than it would otherwise. So as we can see, the participants in the treatment group, after 6 months of being on this blueberry powder supplement every single day, had improvements in their cognition that matched the performance of the reference group that had no cognitive impairment, suggesting that this wild blueberry powder could be an effective solution to restoring cognitive function. So this study essentially supports the initial 2 studies that were done, especially one that showed that there was a 2.5-year delay in cognitive decline after the consumption of polyphenols. So a very promising study that shows us that a diet rich in polyphenols could potentially not only reverse cognitive decline, but may even have potential to prevent it. It shows us that these polyphenols may support our neurons, improve their processing speed, slow cognitive decline, and also slow signs of aging. Effectively, this study showed us that these wild blueberries could protect our brain against cognitive fatigue, which is the decline in our cognitive performance as a mental task task gets harder and harder. So this is a very promising study for sure. It had a very robust study design, and it showed significant results between the treatment group and the placebo group when compared to the reference group. And also it showed an improvement in processing speed and a reversal of mild cognitive decline, and also showed that the wild blueberry powder could protect against cognitive fatigue in those individuals who had already started to experience mild cognitive decline. There's also suggestions from the author that this wild blueberry powder could be used as a prophylactic to even prevent the onset of cognitive slowing. Overall, I love this paper. I loved reading this study, and as far as nutrition goes, it's a very simple supplement to implement in your diet that could make a world's difference. And I think these day and age, as we get more and more health conscious and more focused on preventative measures rather than curative measures, this is a great paper and a great piece of work for us to take into account the next time we start thinking about how we can maximize our brain's performance and fully utilize our brain's capability for as long as we possibly can. Of course, there's much more research to be done in this field. This is a great start and shows very promising results. I've also included the polyphenol content of the different types of blueberries, comparing your normal blueberries versus the wild variety. And the wild variety specifically has a much higher polyphenolic content, which could be why it was so successful in this specific study in combating cognitive decline. And in case you guys are interested, I highly recommend you actually do read this paper, which I have linked down below. And I hope you like it as much as I do, and I hope this video has added some value and you found it useful. That's all for today's videos on blueberries, guys. I hope you found this a fascinating topic, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your constant support, and I can't wait to see you in my next video.